So this is one of those movies that's kind of hard to define. Like, if you're trying to separate into a genre, you know, what is it? Is it an action film? Is it a political thriller? Is it just a plain thriller? I mean, there's a lot of competing elements going on here, and not in a bad way. It's a good movie. I actually liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to, and it was actually just a lot better of a movie than I thought it was going to be. It's just that if there's a flaw in the film, it's that sometimes it doesn't feel like the pieces fit together quite as well as they could. So if you don't know, so in this film, Jackie Chan is he's a Chinaman living in London, and one day his daughter is killed in a terrorist explosion, and he goes on this mission to find out who did it and get his revenge. Very, Liam Neeson Taken kind of thing. Now, what's interesting about the picture, and I didn't know this going in, which I should have, considering it has Pierce Brosnan in it, is, and Marianne, if you're watching this, you'll be happy. Marianne, when we came out of American Assassin, she was saying she thinks it's terrible that all the terrorists in movies are always Arab. Well, here they're Irish. Here it's with the IRA. So the bombings are actually being carried out by the IRA, and Pierce Brosnan's character is a former member of the IRA, or a current member of the IRA, but he wants more of the peaceful kind of stuff. He wants to maintain the peace, and he doesn't want collateral damage. And it's this whole thing of him trying to, Jackie Chan pressuring Pierce Brosnan through intimidation and his own brand of terrorism, to get him the names of the people that did the bombing that killed his daughter. So Pierce Brosnan's under all this pressure, and he's trying to find out within his own organization who's doing what. And there's a lot of just twists and turns, and who's betraying who, and who's doing what, and, all that. So on the... Oh, I just flipped everybody off. I'm sorry. It wasn't like a subconscious thing. Fuck you, kind of thing. Sorry. So on the good side, so there's a lot of good. So again, I really liked this film. First of all, the acting is pretty top notch. Surprisingly, and I say this not trying to be mean, but I've never really seen Jackie Chan in anything where he's acting. He's always kind of goofy, and his action films are always pretty over the top to kind of go with his insane stunts and the whole thing. But he does a surprisingly good job here of kind of playing. Again, I hate to keep comparing it to Taken and Liam Neeson, but that's in the vein of what it is. It's like Taken meets one of the earlier, better Jason Bourne movies. If that makes any sense. And Jackie Chan does a really good job of playing the dour, mourning and yet secretly badass, dad. And of course it turns out that the dad is, a former military guy, and he's just the greatest. He's trained in everything. Of course it has to be that, because otherwise he wouldn't stand a chance, So he does a really decent acting job. The acting MVP for this one goes to Pierce Brosnan, which I always knew Pierce Brosnan was a good actor. But Pierce Brosnan, for me, is one of those actors who's so defined by his persona. In that, I've seen him in other things, but of course the thing I know him the most for, of course, is James Bond. And he was always a very, kind of cheeky James Bond. He was more in the Roger Moore, God rest his soul, mold. That kind of, he's a badass super spy, but he likes to smirk, and he has the wacky gadgets, and whatnot. And Pierce Brosnan, as a person, when you see him in the interviews and everything, it just seems like a very lovable, likable guy. So In this movie, though, he's playing a hard ass, like an old school IRA hard ass. And I thought going into it that was going to be the part that was going to be the hardest for me to buy. It's going to be the hardest to sell for me. But man, did he kick ass in this movie. Man, was he just a badass. I mean, man, he sold it. He sold every bit of it. I can't really, there's not one bad moment that he's on screen. Not one. And he just plays that, that almost, it's going to be sacrilegious. I mean, I am Irish and Italian, but it's going to be sacrilegious to compare, the Irish, former member of the IRA with, like, The Godfather, with, like, Al Pacino in The Godfather. But he has that look, that cold, steely look. He doesn't have to do anything. It's just the way he looks at the other characters. You're like, oh, man, okay, this guy is, both of these characters are more than anybody thinks they are, good and bad. And man, yeah, he just does a really great job with it. So both these guys kept me pretty enthralled, and the story's really interesting. This sounds terrible to say. It sounds awful to say, and I apologize for how crass it sounds. But in a way, it's kind of nice to see a movie with terrorism and internal politics and racism and all this that doesn't take place in America. It's so bad to say, but it's nice to know we're not the only assholes in the world. It really is. It's kind of reassuring. But, when you've seen one American political thriller, you kind of see them all. They're all about kind of the same thing, and you get tired of the same arguments. And here it's a very different argument. It's a very different setting, all in London and Ireland. Some cute, gorgeous scenery shots, by the way. So the film just feels fresh. And the political stuff they're talking about it was a little hard to follow sometimes. I'm not that, up to date on British and Irish politics or, issues thereof. I know the basics, but, I was in the hostage, the play, So the movie itself just has a very fresh take, and it does it like I say, it has elements of, taking me to Jason Bourne, but in terms of the politics and the character dynamics, it's very different. What I also like about this film is that there really isn't a good guy and a bad guy. In fact, a lot of times in the film, you're kind of like, am I supposed to be rooting for Jackie Chan? Because, yeah, you're set up to, he lost his daughter, and then you find out he lost, his entire family in various situations. But the shit he's doing to Pierce Brosnan is pretty hardcore. I mean, he's not just bugging him. The trailers just have you believe like he just sits in his waiting room and bugs him a lot. No, like he goes after him. He bombs his, shit. I mean, I like the moral ambiguity of it, that it's not all, one thing. Pierce Brosnan's character is in a sense a bad guy who has done bad things, but he's trying to do it for a good reason. You really believe that. Jackie Chan's character is a good guy who is doing bad things to a guy. And I like that there isn't really an apology built in. There's not like, and in a way, at the end, I don't want to spoil things too much, but, in the end, when Pierce Brosnan's character kind of gets some comeuppance for some things he did in the film, I actually ended up feeling a little bad for him. It wasn't his plan. It's not what he wanted, but you do feel a little bad for the guy. And I think that's good storytelling and good acting. It doesn't just plop down and say one guy's right and one guy's wrong. It's very, it's layered. Both are wrong and both are right. Both have points, and it's. That being said, even now as I say that, you're like, once you plant a bomb, you are kind of wrong. There's not really a gray area, really. It's like, once you bomb somebody, regardless of what your reasons are, that kind of makes you pretty wrong. Now that I say it, I'm thinking about, like, yeah, that was a dumb thing to say. Yeah, you're pretty fucking wrong. Anyway, so yeah, it holds together, and I can listen to people with Irish accents talk all day, So, and there's a lot of people that go, yeah, boy, oh gosh, sure, that's what we're gonna do. It's odd. Yeah, I love it. Anyway, if there's a flaw to this film, I mentioned this at the very beginning. If there's a flaw, it's that I feel like this is almost two movies that they kind of crammed into one, and you really didn't need both of them. You could have maybe flushed both of them out and maybe made two movies. There's the story of, Jackie Chan going and trying to get revenge. Again, that Liam Neeson Taken kind of thing. And then there's this other film about Pierce Brosnan's character trying to eke out the political traitors in his party and trying to figure out who's doing all this terrible stuff to stop a terrorist attack. So it feels like the two movies intersect in weird ways, and in a way that kind of keeps Jackie Chan's story, or either both of them really, from having a satisfying payoff. Because it feels like Jackie Chan's story, I keep using the Liam Neeson Taken example, but it's kind of true. Jackie Chan's story feels like it belongs in a much less serious action film. Because in the end, spoiler alerts, so if you don't want to hear the end of this, then skip ahead or don't watch it or whatever. But the final boss fight, in any other movie, this would be a big thing, a big climax, a big, facing the last guy, the last dude who is responsible for the bombing and just taking him out. Here, it's not really a great fight, and again, because it's in this realistic world, it's not supposed to be, because the kid who did the bombing is just that. He's a kid. He's not a trained soldier like Jackie Chan is. So the end, when he actually gets his revenge, it feels a bit anticlimactic because, again, the action scenes, which are really good, and I really liked the action scene in this because I've always liked Jackie Chan's, martial arts in his action films, but I liked that it was done in this realistic kind of setting. They kept it just fanciful enough so it's still a Jackie Chan thing, but it's done really realistically and down to earth. But his story doesn't really get any resolution, in my opinion. It doesn't feel like it's very anticlimactic. Again, because all he did was beat up some kid. An evil shit, no judgment there. I mean, the character needed to die. He was an asshole. But, you don't feel as the audience that kind of stand-up and cheer moment that you get in others. And I guess maybe we're not supposed to, but still. And likewise, it doesn't feel like Pierce Brosnan's character or his story gets any real resolution. Feels like he just kind of, I don't know. Again, conflicting character, because he did bad things, but you believe him when he didn't mean it to get as far as it did, and you feel like when he gets the comeuppance in the end, it doesn't feel, again, not as like a stand-up and cheer, like, yay, he beat that guy. It's more like okay, yes, but now what? So that's the big thing. And again, the movie is good. It's just, I feel like the pieces don't come together to give you the most satisfying conclusion. The conclusion doesn't match the intensity and the fascination of the rest of the film. The only other thing I'll say, I've been doing short videos as of late, I'm sure people will be happy about that, is that the music in this is real. I don't know what it is lately. I've really been noticing the music in movies. I've commented on that a lot, which is weird. Which means it stands out in good and bad ways. The music in this is kind of awful. It's very tuneless and, annoying. It's like on like a synthesizer or something. So it's not good. So yeah, I know that's a minor thing to kind of bitch about, but it was very noticeable. Yeah, you know what? I'm having a hard time thinking of anything else to really say about this one, which is kind of weird for me. You know, again, this is like only a 15-minute video right now, and you know, normally I could talk for 20 minutes about the film, so maybe just I'm tired. I don't know, but I think it's pretty easy to wrap this one up. It's a very well made, very well acted, pretty intense and interest-grabbing thriller. I mean, I don't know quite how to describe it. It's not edge of your seat really, but it's cool to kind of watch the whole thing unfold and see, even if you can kind of guess who betrayed who, pretty close to the end. I mean, you pretty much know who did what. But it's still really interesting. The performances are solid. The action is, you know, it's Jackie Chan, so you know the action is going to be pretty spot on. So yeah, if you haven't checked this one out, I'd say go do it. It's well worth the time. And again, it's nice to kind of see sometimes, even if the pieces don't fit quite well, it's nice to see some intelligent action films every now and then. You know, they all just don't have to be like, you know, like The Hitman's Bodyguard, just, you know, pile on the stupid and the, you know, the increasingly hard to believe action scenes. You know, so it's nice to see one that it felt like they really had a complex and interesting story they were trying to tell, and the action scenes were kind of the icing on the cake. So yeah, I liked this one. Best list of the year, I don't think so, but enjoyable. One that I might want to watch again sometime. Yeah. So yeah, check this one out. So, gonna try to see at least one more. There's a really bad movie I've been wanting to see, and I'm trying to con my best friend into seeing it with me. So maybe one of these days he'll do a review with me. I would really like that, but you know, can't hold a guy at gunpoint and make him review a movie, or can you? No. That was weird. That went to a weird place. Sorry. So anyway. Good film. Hoping to see one more before the end of the week. Hope everybody's is having or has had a good weekend. And until next time, drive safe, and I'll see you at the movies.